All right, the big news is coming out of New York, where you have three candidates supported by Mamdani, Claire Valdez, Brad Lander, and Chevalier won seats into Congress in against. They're not going to be in Congress yet, but they won the primaries against Democratic establishment from the Democratic establishment, which is very big news because these guys are Democratic Socialists of America, which is the same party that brought us AOC and brought us Mamdani. And it's showing that not only can they win on the level of mayor with him, but they can continue to get more seats within Congress. They haven't broken the cherry of the Senate House yet, and this is causing a lot of consternation. Their victories is causing consternation from the Democratic establishment, especially like our boy Hakeem, the Oreo cookie Jeffries, who gets a lot of money from Israel to kill people and claims to be a someone who cares about civil rights and about the plight of black people. He's not happy about this, but he tries to play it off as if it's just a small thing, or they won a few seats, but they're not going to make a dent nationally because they come from big cities which tend to be leftist, and leftism is not realistic. But if you look at the pattern coming up in America now, you're seeing that the Democratic Socialists of America, who are to the left, and who are moderately socialist are getting more and more power. In D.C., uh, the mayoral candidate, Janice Lewis George, won the Democratic primary there too for mayor, and she's going to become a mayor. And she's also a member of the Democratic Socialist of America. So now you've got Denise Lewis George, you've got Mamdani, you've got AOC, who's the big boss. Then you've got these three new people, Claire Valdez, Brad Lander, and Chevalier, who have made inroads into American politics with the Democratic Socialists of America, and also the U.S. Senate nominee in Maine, Graham Plattner. He's not a Democratic Socialist of America, but he's also someone who's a populist left person who believes in running without money from corporate. And I want to make a statement here. Everybody that you've seen from the Democratic Socialists of America, AOC, and also Mamdani, they have a strict rule in which they don't get corporate money. They can get money from private, from individual donors at a certain limit, but they don't get corporate money because their idea is that in order to build America, you have to build it at the municipal and local level. Their type of socialism says that schools, healthcare, waterworks, housing should be fully or heavily subsidized if you're not making a certain amount of money and paid for all by corporate tax. So if you're going to do that, there's no way you can take funding from corporations if you're going to pull that off. And even to pull that off at the local level is going to be very difficult for Mamdani because within City Hall, he's going to have a lot of people who are also Democratic Socialists of America. And the argument that someone like Hakeem Jeffries can put forward is that, oh, you're not even going to change New York because you're not going to get enough assembly people to vote for you. But the idea here is that all of this is going to take time. They're going to have to infiltrate more and more seats with more and more big names like Denise in DC. That's a big city. That's a high profile name. She's a black woman who's a Democratic Socialist of America. You have got Mamdani, you've got AOC. So what you'll start seeing is that at the local level, more and more people from that party will start winning. And then what you will start to see is more and more of them will start infiltrating Senate and Congress. So in the long term, this party is bringing a challenge to the Democratic establishment, which, as far as I'm concerned, is no different from Trump and the Republicans. They take money from APAC, they take money from corporations. They don't pass any bills that take the burden off of Americans, whether it's for healthcare or for education or anything else. But they keep saying vote for us because we're not as evil as Trump. To me, that means we're not going to do what you want us to do because you have to vote for us just because we're not as evil as Trump. But we're evil, but not as evil as Trump. So my thing is that that type of thing is cynical, where I would rather not vote for anybody and let the Democrats lose, so that we can send a message that if you're going to come forward as a Democrat, you're going to have socialist leaning. And all socialist leaning means is heavy subsidization of education, housing, waterworks, and those things. If you can give billions to Israel to kill children illegally, if you can give billions to Ukraine to fight Russia for God knows what, if you can spend tons of money on the Epstein class, letting them have tax breaks, why not spend tons of money on education? Why not spend tons of money on healthcare and things and let these billionaires out here who are looting the country pay for it through their taxes? So this is a good start. And for Hakeem Jeffries, all I have to say is that you're a loser. You're an asshole. You're a piece of shit. You take money from APAC, knowing that they kill people, and you come out here thinking because your name sounds Islamic and because you're a black person that you think we're going to we're going to align with you. No, we're not. I will not vote for your party. I will not vote for your party as long as you're putting up candidates who take money and kill children. But the good news is that guys like Mamdani, who have superstar status, and guys like AOC, if they can walk the right line and continue building, then maybe one day I'll vote for the Democratic Party. Even right now, I won't. But maybe one day I will if it's infiltrated by people who really do say what the Democratic Socialists of America say, which is that um, things like water, school, daycare, fighting crime, housing, and everything should be subsidized by the government through corporations. And anybody who says that why should rich people pay for the poor people? Because corporations wouldn't exist if it wasn't for the labor of the poor. If the poor and the middle class stopped working in America, the corporations would die. So the corporations shouldn't tell us that they're rich. Why should they pay the money? Because their wealth comes from us. And the corporate wealth of America, which is built through the labor of America, is what sustains everything. Because if you don't have people who send their kids to school, you don't have people who work, then you won't have the scientists, the doctors, the engineers, and everything who not only make the corporations better, but who actually make the country better and more stable. What are your thoughts on this new trend, Afolabi?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, there's a deep growing divide between the new progressive wave, I call them the new kids on the block, and the older democratic establishment, like the House leader, Hakeem Jeffries. Basically, what the progressive counter narrative is that what they argue that the establishment is out of touch, that they're overly relying on corporate political action committees and defense industry donors, which is not their own way of doing things. And then basically, voters in these primaries are beginning to actively reject candidates that are backed by corporate money in favor of people that challenge from grassroots, basically the socialist
Yes.
guys. So, in my own opinion, I think the strategy for the future is basically they should try and expand beyond the blue coastal cities and try and win nationwide, much like what
Yes.
left-wing MAGA did in the Republican Party. If they can win local mayor races, state houses, and congressional seats, then the left is building an interconnected, like kind of a web, to hijack and redefine the Democratic Party right from
Yes.
inside. And basically,
So
the message is succeed in the Midwest, and the left must try and drop some of this their big English and jargon and focus entirely on anti-corporate and
yeah.
pro-unionism, and speak directly to the survival, economic survival of the working class, basically.
Now, Afolabi, you have to remember that this is an American channel, so I'm gonna have to translate what you said to dumb people English. Okay. Stop talking like you know shit and you better than people, all highfalutin and shit. Like you're better than people. You're better than people from the South, and you're better than people from the Midwest because you went to Yale and shit. You better sit down and talk to people about what matters: food, groceries, schools, crime down, and stop all this elite shit. Also, don't ever start talking about social liberalism. Oh, about I'm pro gay, right? But we're not worried about gay or LGBT and all that. What we're worried about is the economy, stupid. So this is not me saying anti-gay. Focus on the economy because you're not going to win the Midwest and the South if you start talking about issues like abortion and everything. Democratic Socialists of America need to realize that their only focus should be on the economy. That's it, on the economy, and on an economy which takes the wealth of the country and puts it into municipal works, electricity, water, housing, and things. Anybody who says they don't want that must be stupid. I don't care whether you're from Chicago or from Mississippi, white boy South. What's wrong with that? Now let's go back to what you're saying. Hakeem Jeffries is saying that these guys can't infiltrate other parts of America. They can only go for the big cities on the East Coast and the West Coast. That's not true. They can start to make inroads in swing states, Pennsylvania, which has a high level of urban areas and rural areas. They can take Pennsylvania, they can take Wisconsin, they can take Ohio, they can take a lot of seats in places like that and build themselves up by going to in the Midwest, also Illinois, Chicago, those areas. Go to the Midwest where there are a lot of independents and there are a lot of urban areas which could fight the rural areas and continue fighting. The only problem is with all this gerrymandering and stuff. So let's keep going. And also, like you said, they're going to have to cut all this jargon. We believe in the oppressed and the complex, blah, 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 blah. No, fuck that shit. When our kids go to school, they shouldn't have to pay for food at school. Goddamn, feed my kids because they're hungry. When I work for this country and my kids help sustain this country, give me fucking health care. If Elon Musk can get $1 trillion and have tax loops, let me have my kids get education. If our kids don't have education in America, how are we going to beat China and Russia and all those evil folks?
Yeah.
Talk like that to people. Populism. This is how MAGA made it. Trump pretended to be down to earth until after he got his second election. These people have to be down to earth and have to learn how to send their message to the Midwest and to other parts of the country. The southern part of the country is given. You have to give up on that. Those rednecks will never vote socialist. I don't know why. But you can take the Midwest and the Rust Belt and the swing states and continue building. And at some point, though, when the economy hits the broke, you're going to see populists come out of the Republican Party like Marjorie Taylor Greene and Tucker Carlson. And they're also going to start realizing that we don't care whether black people have health care free because we want it too. If black, we don't mind anymore. We don't mind anymore if black people get welfare because we need it too. So in other words, all politicians in America at some point when the country hits the shit hits the fan, they're all going to have the motto of the Democratic Socialist of America, which basically says the government's going to have to subsidize this shit because we can't take it anymore, and the super rich are going to have to pay, even if some of the funding comes from the citizens. Taxes, the rich are going to have to pay more taxes. So at some point in America, they're going to say the rich are going to have to take more taxes, and I can't afford food, I can't afford healthcare because that's where we're heading at. So the government needs to take care of it. So that's my message to Hakeem Jeffries, who's sitting down there taking billions from Israel, taking billions from APAC and sending billions to Israel to bomb children, rather than worry about how black kids in Chicago can have a safe environment, can have subsidized daycare, so the moms don't have to worry about how their children are on the streets doing things that you don't want your kids to do. Rather than doing that, the money that you're taking from APAC that's also sending billions to Israel, start to worry about the plight of black and white and black and Hispanic and other poor people in America. He doesn't represent America, and he's trying to shrug a movement that's moving up. Mamdani did the impossible by winning in New York. By doing that, everybody looked. Now everybody's looking at these three guys, and also Lewis in DC. We're starting to see Democratic Socialists of America win. So let's see what happens. It's better to hope that this movement grows than to continue voting for the Democrats as they are now. What are your thoughts, Afolabi?
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Mustafa. And I think they're on the right trajectory. What I just feel they need to do is basically if they can combine economic reform with social programs that are very inclusive, they're on the
Mm-hmm.
right track. Yes, and basically they need candidates that have progressive ideas into
Mm-hmm.
practical can translate ideas into practical everyday language. And then if you
Yes.
look at the influence that the Tea Party and MAGA movement did in the Republican Party, I think the
Mm-hmm.
strategy is similar. Win Democratic primaries in the safe districts, replace the established politicians, and then they can build a base of
Mm-hmm.
disciplined congressional caucus. And I think with that, in fact, they're beginning to reshape the narrative in the
And here's
Democratic
my last
Socialist
point. And
Alliance.
here's my last point. So Mamdani is the mayor of New York. Forget about the national. Let's give up the view for the country. Let's say the country is fucked. We don't care about the rest of the country. What we care about is New York. So what I'm going to argue is that Mamdani's strategy now is to get as many Democratic Socialists, not in the America, not in the Congress and Senate for federal, to just get them for local and just worry about New York and let the rest of the country burn. I, you see what my theory is? So grassroots is more important than federal. So what I'm saying is that Mamdani needs to focus on New York and make it a place that people from the rest of a part of America will move to New York and say, fuck this. If other countries don't want to have good programming and housing and schools, I'll leave them and come to New York. Let the people who are in DC, let them get as many people. Because the problem is that Mamdani alone can't change New York. He's going to have to get more Democratic Socialists of America in New York in the assembly. Just like in Nigeria, it doesn't matter whether you're the governor or so. If you don't have enough people in assembly, you can't pass your bills. So rather than focus on the national level right now, focus more on your local municipalities, which are in danger, and other states, let them worry about themselves. Because America is a fractured country. It's not a unified federation at all, as far as I'm concerned. Worry about your town. Like I live in Northern Virginia. Northern Virginia isn't too bad. The crime isn't so bad. Um, I don't have health care, but I have government health care, Medicaid. I don't have health care through my job. All of that is covered. So I don't give a fuck what's happening in Mississippi because I'm okay here. This is my country. You get my point? So Mamdani's country is New York. Let him focus on that and let him he should be replicated. What I mean by replicated, there need to be all of the assembly in New York needs to be filled up by people from his party, and they eventually need to get a governor because right now the governor will go against him because she's against him. I think the governor is Republican or is a moderate Democrat. So he needs to focus on New York City, then try to get into those other areas in New York to replicate it. But like you said, it has to go both ways. Build up people in the cities, the mayors, and then build up states governors, then get people in Congress and Senate. This is going to take, I don't know how long it'll take. I think as bad as the country is, within 10 years, the Democratic Socialists of America will have more and more seats. I was going to say it's going to take 20 or 30 years, but as the country is decaying, it's going to speed up the revolution. Last thoughts are for Larry.
You're
Yeah.
absolutely right. And they started on the right trajectory. If they continue to defeat all these established Democrats in primary elections, they can expand beyond the liberal coastal cities into the working class swing states, basically. So what they can now do is to articulate their policies in simple layman language to the grassroots. And then basically what I feel is that they can help to reshape, the party if only they can, make the ideas more relatable to the grassroots, basically. And that's what you
Yeah.
talked about when you talked about local
I'm so pissed
community.
off because we're 7 minutes into a World Cup game now. We gotta go. World Cup is more important to American
All
population.
right.
I'm just
All
kidding,
right.
but you're right. Start to find strategies to spread, and even if you places like I said, places like Michigan, Wisconsin, Ohio, those areas are half redneck but half
Detroit.
urban. Yeah, if you could take those places, you don't even have to take the whole country because you'll have a majority in Senate and Congress. Trump won. Trump beat Kamala Harris because she didn't win any of those swing states. A swing state is a state that could either go liberal or ultra
Yes,
conservative.
yes, yes,
As long
yes.
as you win those states, you don't even need to win the super conservative states. But I'm
Sure.
glad that Kamala Harris lost because she's a traitor. She doesn't represent the
Absolutely.
values. She doesn't represent the values of black people. She doesn't represent the values of the middle class or anybody. So I'd rather see Trump, who's evil and tells you he's evil, than see somebody who's supposed to be our friend. I'm glad she lost because if she wins, it reinforces the demise of the Democratic Socialists of America. I want to continue seeing Democrats lose so that America realize the only option is democratic socialists. Okay, take us out.
Yeah, it's been another brilliant show. We've been discussing the evolution from within of democratic socialists, challenging the status quo, the established progress as the established Democrats. And it looks as if they're making inroads. And from Mustafa and myself, we'll be back again with another interesting political show. Bye for now.
Nice one. That was a good one. We talk about anything, man.
Just about anything. Just
Yeah.
about anything.
All right. See you later, man.
All
So
right.
we'll